What's going on YouTube? Welcome, and I am LiboATM as always, and welcome to the Let's Talk About Pinhead video. So Pinhead officially dropped this afternoon here in the UK time. I think it was 11 a.m. in US and Canada. I'm not entirely sure. Time differences for stuff like this frazzle my brain. So it was 4 p.m. here. So yeah, it's been fun, man. Not if you can't say anything else about Pinhead, fun is definitely the word to describe him. So, if you've not watched one of my Let's Talk About videos before, this is where I kind of look at a new character that's come into Dead by Daylight. I kind of give my initial thoughts and review from kind of the PTB and then the first day or so live. And then I'll talk you through what my impression of that character's best build will be, and then suggested perks or perk builds for all of Pinhead's teachables, which are on the screen at the moment. So yeah, we'll get jumped in and we'll start off with the review. Right, so Pinhead. So on the screen now, I first of all want to apologise. The gameplay that I recorded for this is absolutely shocking. I tried to record 3 or 4, and the game kept like crashing out with a disconnected from host thing. So the game that you're watching is like the first game I played of Pyramid since the PTB. So it is incredibly rough, and you'll probably be looking at it going, look, Lubo, what are you doing? What are you doing? Hit those survivors. Stop whiffing. Stop it. You're annoying me with your whiffs. But I want you to know, I understand. I get it. Right. Pinhead. I keep going to call him Pyramid Head. I don't know if it's just that it's ingrained into my head. So we'll start off. Like, power is obviously the chains, the power or the summons of pain. So you can use like a mechanic that's like a nurse style blink to project a marker forward, and then you control a hook that you can then latch onto survivors, which will then slow them down periodically. So you can either get a free hit or you can catch up on them if they've made some distance on you. On top of that, you have the additional chain hunt, and the chain hunt basically periodically throughout the game, if they don't solve the lament configuration box, will randomly spawn chains in the environment that will attach onto survivors until they complete the lament configuration. So it's like an additional kind of passive slowdown, because it will stop them from doing. You can't stay in the same position and do gens. You can't heal without being interrupted by chains and things like that. So it really forces them off what they're doing to go find the box and open it so you can claim. But yeah, so the power, first of all. So look, first of all, the first thing I want to say about his power is I'm really happy that this is the first killer in a really long time that's broke behavior's kind of pattern of ridiculously oppressive in a one-on-one situation killers. Like, Pinhead is not oppressive in a one-on-one. Even when you land your chains on like a safe pallet, the amount of time like the survivors can still break free relatively easy before you break a pallet or make it round the loop or whatever. It's not like Nemesis Slinger twins, where you're basically guaranteed hits in a one-on-one, guaranteed downs in a one-on-one. It's a lot more about your whole gameplay with Pinhead, in terms of like keeping track of the chain hunts. Obviously you use the power to benefit you in loops, but it doesn't guarantee you a hit, therefore you still have to rely on your ability as killer, your ability to mind game tiles and things like that. And you'll see that on the gameplay that's shown just now. I didn't really get a lot of value out the chains, because obviously it was the first game back and it's still getting used to them. So a lot of the stuff that I had to do relied on what I knew how to do at killer, like mind game, LT walls and things like that. So yeah, I'm first of all, I'm really happy that it's broke that kind of pattern of the last few killers, and it's more of a kind of rounded killer. Like, don't get me wrong, like I don't think Pinhead is one of the weakest killers, but I would certainly put him like middle of the road in terms of like if I was to make a tier list. And there's nothing wrong with that. Every killer that comes into Dead by Daylight doesn't need to be a spirit level or a nurse level like killer, or it doesn't need to have like a ridiculously oppressive aspect to their character. It's just everything about Pinhead is really fun and cool. The power is fun. It can be incredibly frustrating, which we'll come on to. his aesthetic is really cool. And just like the general animations and stuff like that that go with him are really, really cool. In terms of the actual power and how it works, controlling the chain is a nightmare. Like, it gave me PTSD to like playing GTA 3 and Vice City and trying to control the annoying like toy plane missions or the toy helicopter missions to like navigate bombs through construction sites and stuff. Like, I honestly get taken back to that going, this is how frustrated I was playing that. Sometimes it feels like it should be a guaranteed hit and it misses. It's very hard to control. It's going to take a lot of time for people, I think, unless you're like an elite level Dead by Daylight player who has thousands of hours. For most people, it's going to take a lot of time getting used to that mechanic. And unfortunately, I think the way it's going to get used is similar to Deathslinger's quick scoping. Like, I think from what I've experienced in the PTB and in live, is people will project the object to where they're viewing you go, and as soon as it snaps to that view, you're like all they can see in their camera, and it's an instant release. I think you'll see fewer and fewer people actually try to land like long distance chains or things like that, which is a shame because it's a cool mechanic and it's good, especially if you're far away. You've got, like, for example, if you're using one of his perks plaything and you're oblivious and don't know where you are, can't hear your terror radius, if you can land a long distance chain which stops them getting distanced immediately, it could be really, really big for you in terms of like gaining ground and things like that. But I think you'll probably see that less and less. And the chain hunt, I was really concerned when I first saw the chain hunt. When the PTB came out, like the description, it sounded horrendous. But luckily in live, what I think is, it is frustrating without being oppressive, if you know what I mean. Like, it's annoying, and it's kind of like a pig bear trap, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not something that you're like automatically worried about as soon as you get a pig trap on. I'm not automatically worried when a chain hunt starts, but it's just frustrating because you need to come away from doing objectives, saving teammates, healing, doing totems to deal with this situation that you're in, and I think it's a lot more like that. Another couple of things that I've noticed around his gameplay that I think is really weird. The lunge feels really different. You'll notice like a lot of whiffs in the video that's going on, and that was me just trying to get you. His lunge feels a lot different. See, lunging around corners does not feel the same as other killers, and I don't know if that's a conscious decision or something that's maybe just went a bit skew with in the design. But it doesn't feel as smooth as it does in other killers. I don't know if it's like the chain animation or things like that. I noticed that is something to look out for. And other than that, there's not really a lot to it. It's not a case of he's not like a standard M1 killer. It's just it's going to take you time to learn how to control his chains and get the most out of his power. And I think that's the same for everyone. I don't think a lot of people who'll be putting out content at this point will know exactly what the best strategy for playing Pinhead is, which I think is really good because it gives people a lot of opportunities to try stuff out, and you know what I mean, it's not just like the same rinse and repeat we've had with previous killers where it's like put on the strongest meta perks and then, you know, face people into a one-on-one, guarantee a down. Like, there's going to be a lot more, I think, finesse probably to getting good at Pinhead. The downfall of that though is there'll be less people playing Pinhead. It's just the way things go in this game is that if it's not a fairly easy learning curve or it's not an incredibly overpowered killer, you see the play rates kind of go down quite significantly, which is a shame because I would like to see people playing Pinhead a lot. I'm sure they will be over the next few days anyway. But yeah, that's the review. That's my initial thoughts. Let's go on and start talking about some perks and some builds. Alrighty, so let's start talking about best build. So, as always in these videos, I put up like a little graphic, which you'll see on the screen just now, which is what I believe is the best build for Pinhead, in my opinion, from what I've played and the kind of analysis that I've done of watching other gameplay and stuff like that. So we've got Hex Plaything, which is a unique teachable of Pinhead. We've got Hex Thrill of the Hunt. We have Save the Best for Last. Pop Goes the Weasel. We have the Impaling Wire. And we have the Original Pain for add-ons at the end there. So I'll talk you through it, give you my reasons why, and more sort of the reasons why I haven't selected other perks as well as why I've selected these ones. So just to start off, this has been probably the hardest one since I've started doing content creation. And even maybe before that, because obviously I've been playing Dead by Daylight for a long time, but I've only been kind of making content for, I don't know how many months now. I think the first one of these I did was for Trickster. But for Trickster and Nemesis, they were relatively straightforward ones in terms of you could see originally what their strengths and weaknesses were going to be after playing a couple of games, and you could kind of put two and two together. With Pinhead, I really don't get that, so it took me that's basically been from PTB until today. I've been thinking about what his best build is, so let's talk through the perks first of all, right? So Hex Plaything basically means that all the totems on the map start off as dull. The Cursed Survivor, or they become cursed after you hook them for the first time, become oblivious until their Hex Plaything totem is cleansed. So Hex Plaything's totem aura is revealed to the Cursed Survivor within 16 meters of it, and for the first 90 seconds, only the Cursed Survivor can cleanse that totem. So basically, what this does is, in kind of layman's terms, is when you hook them, they become oblivious. They can't hear your terror radius. They can't see your red stain. And only they can cleanse their totem for the first minute and a half after they've been unhooked. And they can only see the aura of the totem within 16 meters. After 90 seconds, anyone on the team can cleanse it as soon as they see it's a hex totem. So this obviously just goes without saying. Having multiple people oblivious in a team is pretty big. You know what I mean? Like, having people oblivious and not knowing where you're coming from, when you're coming from, and especially with, as I was talking about in the review, being able to hit long-range chains, which means you can kind of stop them from making distance, is fairly major. So I've comboed that with Thrill of the Hunt rather than Undying. And the reason for that is I believe you would want to defend the Plaything totem. Undying does not give you any real protection if a hex totem is being cleansed. Also, survivors are kind of triggered to knowing that Undying's on the map if they go buy a dull totem earlier on in the map and they get the cursed emblem. So the whole point is I wanted to avoid hex perks, because you don't want hundreds of hex perks being taken up by other things, and then you get less dull totems for your Plaything. But I also wanted to do something to protect Plaything so it was harder to get rid of. So Thrill of the Hunt basically gives you a longer cleansing time, and it notifies you as the killer when someone is cleansing one of your totems. So if someone goes to cleanse their Plaything totem, you'll get a notification and you can cut them off from that, and obviously they're oblivious, so you can in theory do this in a kind of stealthy way, keep as many people oblivious for as long as possible, and go along like that. So that's the kind of reason for the initial combo of those two perks. The next one, Save the Best for Last, is all round a great perk. So you get an increased reduction in your cooldown from basic attacks when you do not, obviously when you hit someone who isn't your obsession, and gain stacks. So my thought behind this is that if people are caught in chains and you can use Save the Best for Last and have a lot of stacks, then even if you punch them and they break free of the chains, they make less distance. Or if you hit them while they're during a chain hunt, you have reduced cooldown while the other chains are in effect. So basically, reduced cooldown gives you more time, and with the chains in play, it means that you're more likely to follow up on successful hits quickly. There is one specific add-on that I think would be incredible for this, but in these videos I try to avoid iridescent add-ons as part of the best build, because it's not something people are going to have for every game. But the iridescent add-on that causes a health state with the chains, I think would be ridiculous. We Save the Best for Last on this killer, but I'm trying to bypass that for the time being. And the final one is Pop, and the reason for Pop is you need regression. We don't need regression, but it'd be good to have regression in this build, especially if you miss chains. It is quite punishing, so you need to have something that you can kind of work back from. And if you're going to be getting hooks to get your Plaything value, then obviously you can use your Pop Goes the Weasel to regress gens by 25%. And again, choosing Pop over Ruin, because again, you want to limit the amount of totems that you're putting out there in the game. So Pop will give you that regression, or give you a decent amount of regression without the need of a Hex perk. And finally, the add-ons. So the original Pain is basically the kind of the purple version of the iridescent I was talking about. So anyone who breaks free of chains will be placed into the Deep Wound status effect, which is ridiculous. It sounds a bit like Old Legion, but you know what I mean? Like, there's no denying that's going to be a good add-on, so I feel kind of dirty for suggesting it, But yeah, that add-on is pretty ridiculous. And then the other one I've put is Impaling Wire, which is when a survivor uses the environment to break a chain, it will target them with an additional one. So, for example, like if you're using the chains to try and get deep wound on people, if they are having chains broken by the environment rather than them breaking free of it, this gives you basically an additional chain for them to do the break free and for you to get your deep wound, basically, is the thought process behind it. So that's basically it. Your main thing around it is basically this build is trying to keep you as stealthy as possible and be able to creep up on people as much as possible. And then when you have creeped up on them and you have kind of engaged them in chase, save the best for last should give you the reduced cooldown working with the chains to get your hits. That's the thought process anyway. Yeah, so that's my opinion of best build for Pinhead. Right guys, final section of Let's Talk About Pinhead, and this is suggested builds for Pinhead's Teachables. I have made a slight bit of a boo-boo on one of them, but you know what? We'll just go with it, right? We'll just go with it, and we'll do it on the fly. So on the screen is a graphic again that will go through all of Pinhead's Teachables, and then a suggested build you could do around them to get some value. So this isn't necessarily on Pinhead. This is on any other killer. To get value out the perks, because a lot of times when new perks come out, a lot of people don't tend to run new perks if they don't see them as OP or the new meta, so a lot of new perks don't really get used. So I like to put this out there to give you guys some ideas to use this perk for. So starting off with the Deadlock build. So after a generator is repaired, the entity will block the generator with the most amount of progression for X amount of time. You'll see this gen's aura in white. So basically, someone pops a gen, the next most amount of worked on gen gets blocked off for I think it's up to 30 seconds at tier 3. So the build I went around with this is basically just a kind of standard build that will hopefully get you the kind of visibility you need of where to direct your Pop Goes the Weasel. So it's more kind of around, the build's kind of more around Pop than it is around Deadlock. But I think Deadlock additions into this build gives you a lot more information. So Discordance, if you get multiple people working on a generator together, so you'll know which gens could potentially pop soonest, along with the fact it gives you visibility and tracking. Barbecue and chili, obviously, so you can see auras when you hook people far away and you can see what gens are being worked on. And then obviously Deadlock will show you once a gen has been popped. So if you've hooked someone, a gen pops while you're carrying them or just after you've hooked them, you will immediately know what the next best or next highest progress gen is, and you can go directly there with your Pop Goes the Weasel and continue to tick things over with your regression on that, hopefully snowballing and getting yourself some meaty hooks, much like our man Pinhead, meaty hooks. Yeah, so that's the Deadlock build. The Hex Plaything build, I realised after I'd put this together and played a couple of games that the build that I've put together for this completely negates Plaything and you can't use it. So I'll talk you through my logic for it, right? But it's not going to work because because basically every totem is covered by a hex. Therefore, you have no dull totems to become your plaything, other than the one dull one. So you'll get one plaything stack. So we'll talk through. So it was a hex build. So you have Undying to protect your totems, you have Thrill of the Hunt to protect your totems, you have Haunted Ground to get you insta-downs, and you have Plaything to keep people oblivious. But as discussed, this will not work because they're all hex builds. So probably, I was trying to do a build that wasn't the one that I'd put up for Pinhead, so it was something slightly different. But let's be honest, the best build that you can build around Plaything, I think, would be the build that I said is the best build for Pinhead. So we'll just go with that. So use the best build for Pinhead as the best hex Plaything build, and ignore the fact that I am so dumb. And finally, Scourge Hook, Gift of Pain build. Ridiculous name for a perk, by the way. It's a cool concept, but it's such a ridiculous name for a... You could have just called it Scourge Hook or Gift of Pain. It doesn't need to be Scourge Hook. It sounds like a bad movie. You know what I mean? Bad name aside, anyway, right? So Scourge Hook, basically what that will do is when a survivor is unhooked from a Scourge Hook, they suffer from the hemorrhage and mangled status effect until fully healed, and then they will receive X amount penalty to healing and repair actions until they are injured again. So even if they heal out of the kind of sloppy butcher effect, they still have a 9% healing and repair penalty until you injure them again. So not only do you slow their heal down, but you slow their ability to do anything else while in the trial. So obviously the Scorch hooks, there's 4 random hooks that are Scorch hooks, and they show up in white. You'll have seen them in the gameplay video I had earlier on. So basically what I've done here is I've kind of went for a bit of a kind of more slowdown regression build idea without using like pop or rune. So basically the thought process is you just want to like draw the game out as long as possible. So you've got Corrupt Intervention, which blocks the 3 furthest away gens from the killer at the beginning of the match. Thanatophobia, which gives you a stackable penalty to like healing and things like that as you injure survivors. Obviously add that to the Scourge Hook effect. Like obviously if someone's got a 9% penalty at tier 3 and then you have the other people in the map injured, you're talking about 29% penalty rather than 9%, which is a massive penalty. It's like basically people are doing things a third slower. And then barbecue and chili again, because for you'll need some sort of tracking as you go through the match. And the longer the match goes on, and people maybe get out of their mangled and hemorrhaged state, which I think also is really cool. By the way, I never touched on that. I think it's really cool that the unhooked survivor basically automatically has Sloppy Butcher applied. I just think that's such a cool thing. It's such a good design idea from the devs. So kudos for that. But yeah, so that's basically the plan. Just draw the game out for as long as possible, and then the longer the game goes, the more likelihood you have of securing kills and things like that. So that would be my Scourge Hook build. Right guys, let's talk about Pinhead. I for one am going to turn off this video and go back to playing him a bit more, just try to get a little bit better and try and get better with the hooks. I think is going to be my plan for this evening. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I hope that it's been a little bit informative and it's kind of told you a little bit more about the killer. As always, I've been LuboATM. Please like the video, please subscribe to the channel, and until I see you guys next time, peace!